Hi everyone, this is Madhuri from National Skills Network, which is popularly known as NSN, and we are continuing with our Skill Talk series. And we have a special guest today from the academia, an academician who's taken a responsibility which is absolutely challenging for a university which is very unique, which combines skills and entrepreneurship. So welcome, ma'am, Professor Niharika Bora, Vice Chancellor, Delhi Skills and Entrepreneurship University. It's a privilege to have this talk with you and learn from you about your vision for the university and the current activities and priorities that you are undertaking and how do you see this going forward. So welcome to this talk, ma'am.
Thank you, Madhuri, for the lovely introduction, and also thank you for doing the work that you're doing. Um, all right. So the question you asked me was, what is the vision for the university? Um, the vision is really very simple. It is to say that is to bridge the gap between the fact that the industry needs certain kind of skilled people and the students need jobs or work in the industries that they're working in. So the whole idea is to bridge the gap because a lot of universities, without being critical, I'm not being critical of them, typically do what is called theoretical teaching. And it's very important to learn theory, it's very important to learn concept, but it's also equally important to learn the skill or the work that is required for the industry. So this university is the vision and the mission and the purpose is to create courses which will actually skill people um, to be able to be job ready from the day they step out of the university.
Mhm. Yeah. So, and also, ma'am, being a skills and entrepreneurship university, I assume this is the first of its kind in India. So, how do you see the connection happening between the two? And also, we are a culture. India is culturally not so, favorable for entrepreneurship. Like parents don't encourage their children to become entrepreneurs. So, in such a
Hmm.
culture,
Hmm.
how do you think you're going to combine these two?
Hmm. So, there are many nuances to this answer. So, on one hand, I think a large number of the middle class parents definitely want their children to have a secure, settled life. And a secure, settled life comes from having a job because at the end of the month, you get a salary. While on the other hand, I think we are also traditionally we have been a nation of traders. We have been a nation of people with small businesses. So it's not like we haven't run businesses or we're not entrepreneurial. The third thing is that I think there is a change that is coming along in a large number of families and in a large number of people saying, at least once I would like to do a startup. At least once I would like to do an enterprise. So at least that once is a good starting point. And the fourth thing that I want to say is that if you look at entrepreneurship, it is not just about starting a business. Yeah, that of course is an important aspect of it. It is about solving a problem in the context that you are operating in. So I could be entrepreneurial in my organization, in a job that I'm in. I could be entrepreneurial in the society that I live in. I could be entrepreneurial in the university that I study in. So entrepreneurial mindset is more important than just entrepreneurship for us.
Yeah, right. And also, you were trying to distinguish between the business and the entrepreneurship. I think these are
Yes,
two very important things. Just to
correct.
continue with that strain of thought, ma'am, like you just said that, yes, in India, we have been culturally into business. There are a lot of small businesses. That is on one side. And on the other side, this very formal entrepreneurship kind of thing, the startup culture and all, there is a gap between the two. So do
Yeah.
you think when we bring skills in between, this is going to help us in resolving or bridging the gap here?
I do think so. I do think so. I think the point that one, when we focus on skilling,
Yeah.
we are saying I can use something that I know to actually create livelihoods and jobs for myself, right? So I could do it for myself, I could do it for others, but the fact is I'm not doing it based on just having money or having a background, but because I'm skilled at something. So I use something that I possess to actually create a livelihood.
Yeah.
So that is where I think the link between skilling and entrepreneurship lies.
Right. And also in the process, you become a job creator. So my next
Absolutely.
question would be, how is the university going to take this up, let's say in a big way, where we are going to make it like cool thing to be a job creator and attract many more people. So how do you plan to take this, implement this through the courses?
Again, I think one of the things that we have decided, that no matter what course we run,
Mhm.
cutting across all courses, there will be a significant module on entrepreneurship, right? Entrepreneurial mindset. That is one. There are certain courses that we are also designing at the university, which from the beginning we are saying are the kind of courses that will help people set up enterprises. So for example, when we are thinking of a course on beauty care, we are not simply thinking of somebody who will go and work in a beauty parlor. We're thinking this person in their own environment will be able to create a small business for themselves. So in those courses, we are definitely planning to have a significant entrepreneurship component. Yeah, starting from knowing how to incorporate a business, get a bank account running, to doing a GST, to doing your marketing, pricing, everything. Similarly, we have a course that we are envisaging, which we aren't sure whether we'll run it this year or next year, and that is on learning repair of household electrical appliances. So from an iron to a washing machine, learning to repair all of them. So that will again be a course where we are not expecting them to go and work in a company, but this is a thing that will allow them to set up their own business. So that is the second thing that we're thinking about. So yeah, so that's one way we are thinking that we would have people become more entrepreneurial. We're also hoping that every course will have a little component of maybe starting your own business, maybe trying something to understand what it really means. But I don't think that if we have 10,000 students in the university, all of them will become entrepreneurs. That's not my vision at this
Yes,
point of
ma'am.
time.
Yeah.
I want to add one more thing, and that is one of the programs that we are currently working on is to actually identify 100 women
Mhm.
who will, micro businesses, maybe up to 5 employees, who will actually, we will identify them, we will support them, we will incubate them, and we will grow them, mentor them for 18 months. So we are planning to create a cohort of 18 women entrepreneurs, 18-month, 100
Great, ma'am.
entrepreneurs.
Okay.
Hmm.
That's something really great, ma'am, and also giving specific focus to women. I think that's much
Yes.
needed. And also, you were mentioning this thing about changing the mindset and changing people's attitudes, etc. This is so much required today in skilling, as we are aware, and we are going through that transition in our education system as well. So, one question which I am asked most of the time, through our network is to do with. There are skill universities coming up in India, and what is it that is so different about a skill university, in terms of courses or in terms of curriculum, and how are these courses being different from, let's say, the courses offered by private training partners, like, people who generally offer skill development courses. So, how would you like to respond to this question?
Sure. So some of the research that we have been doing in terms of talking to students, understanding the skilling partners, and so on and so forth, one of the things we have found is that one need that a lot of students show is to have a degree. So they want a degree at the end of the day. And on the other hand, a lot of the skilling is a very short, it's a 6 month, 4 month, maximum 1 year kind of a course. It doesn't lead to a degree. And then, they take a course, they take a skilling course, and then they go ahead and do a degree, which both of them don't match and they don't work. So at a university, we have the unique opportunity of actually creating a degree around a skill. We want to create a group of people who could work in the mental health space, right? Who could listen, counsel, who could possibly take caseloads, who could work with the Anganwadi workers, who could work with the geriatric population, and so on and so forth. So rather than doing a BA in psychology, we are creating a BA in mental health work, which will actually have basics of psychology. It will have a lot of the skill of helping, and therefore there'll be 60% focus on learning how to do the help work, and 40% learning the theory behind it. So you have a 3-year degree that has gotten created, which is on mental health work. So it's a skill, and it is a degree which helps you. You'll be employable the day you step out, if you have this kind of skill. So that is what we're trying to do. Now, this course, when we are developing, it is not just the academics who are developing. We are working very, very strongly with the industry to develop this course. What is your need? What kind of people do you need? What are the graduate attributes? What are the skills that you need from these people? So we are working both with the academics and industry to actually create this course. We are also envisaging that maybe in 3 years' time, this course may not be required. And we are saying, okay, there is only a 3-year cycle to the course. 3 years later, we'll again evaluate. Should we run the course? If yes, we will continue to. If not, we will stop the course and we'll do something different. So the point I'm trying to say is that we're trying to create courses which are deeply involved with the industry. They will have a lot of internship, on the job training during the course. It will be a 3-year degree course, and it is something that we are not saying will run for the next 50 years. Yeah, which we will not look at. It will be contemporary based on the needs of the industry. And the last thing I would say is, because we are in a university that is getting formed in 2020, the year the NEP got announced, we are by design and by our DNA saying the course will have multiple entries and exits. So there is a student who could come in and say, after 1 year, I need to go out and work. Go ahead, come back a couple of years later, complete your degree. You could do it over 2 years, you could do it over 3 years. That's what we're trying to do.
Yeah, I think, ma'am, the way you explained integrating with the industry, I think this is a very innovative idea in the course as well, where you are trying to address the needs of the industry which are current, and also the flexibility which is built in to review the outcome and continue or not. Now, connected with this is another thing about the outcomes or the quality aspect of the courses. How do you think that this is going to be of high quality? What are the parameters you foresee, or is it too early for me to ask this question?
Well, it is never early to talk about quality. I think quality has to be part of the DNA. And quality comes from the mindset that we bring and the kind of expectations we set with the students. So the way I'm thinking of it, and of course UGC also talks about this, it is not a course where you graduate because you got 33%. We will define a certain level of competence that you definitely need to have before you can actually get a certificate from us. So what we're saying is, it is a competence-based evaluation, and it will be continuous evaluation. So this university may not have a whole exam month. It will have exams every day. It will have exams designed by the faculty and tested on a regular basis, and it is not possible for somebody to get a 33% and pass. The whole idea is that you have to perform at a certain level. You have to learn something at a certain level to be able to graduate from the program. So this is what we are building into the design of our curriculum and assessment at this point of time. So that is where I think the quality will come from. And I'm hoping that we will work very, very hard with our faculty to also impress on them this new way of working of teaching and assessing in these courses. And that's how we hope there'll be quality.
Yeah, and you just mentioned about the faculty. So what is your plan, ma'am, for hiring the faculty members, and where do you think they will come from for the university level teaching? Because this is mostly happening for the first time, where we are looking at NSQF higher levels, which are going up to 7 or 8 or so.
Yes. Yes. So again, Madhuri, I don't have a very concrete answer for this. We have said that we will at least have 40% faculty, because our courses are 40-60, 40 theory, 60 skilling. So 40% of the faculty who will meet the UGC criteria right off. So they will be PhDs, they will have done some work in the field and so on and so forth. And 60% faculty, we are saying, will be professors of practice who would have a master's and who would also have a significant amount of experience working in the industry. So the way we are looking at is there are the full professors and there are professors of practice. And also because we don't want to be saddled with the fact that because we've hired faculty, we have to run a course. We want to say that even the faculty will be on a 5-year contractual basis. So which means that after 5 years, if the course will run, you will stay. If the course will not run, then either you will have to reinvent yourself or find something else and more interesting to do in life. So that's what we are saying.
I think this is also an innovative idea, ma'am. Ma'am, you come from the background of entrepreneurship and innovation. And also I can see the innovative ideas you are sharing. And I'm sure this is going to impact, it's like reimagining the university administration and,
Yes.
implementing things, which is absolutely new and amazingly wonderful to hear. Because accountability is also coming in, many other things are coming in. I think also the faculty will feel more accountable and more involved also. And my last question here would be to hear from you about this idea of emphasizing placements. I'm not talking just from your university perspective, but on the whole, connecting skilling with placements. How do you see this entire equation, and what is your view on it?
Yeah. So I personally think that education should lead to employability, right? There is no two doubts about it. One is also not saying that it should be employability only in a certain way, right? So how will somebody become employable? They have to learn the skills. They have to learn what are called employability skills, right? So we are calling them face the world skills. So knowing certain things that you need to actually have. Now, my point is that if you have constantly interacted with the industry and your learning is applied and is thorough, then why would the industry not hire you? So I'm not in this whole thing of having 100% placement. I'm saying you will be just so eminently placeable and you would be so valuable to the industry that there will be jobs at the end of the day. So yes, I've been very surprised because I come from IIM Ahmedabad, where again, while we never say that there'll be 100% placement, but we always say that please learn, let us focus on preparing the student to a level that they will be placeable. Why would an organization not want you? So that is what I also want to do here. Invest in the learning process, in the design of the learning process, get the industry to experience the candidates while they're learning, invest in their growth, and obviously you should find a job.
Yeah. So, yeah, and also I think the onus lies with the students also, right?
Absolutely. If you don't study, if you don't work hard, if you don't do what is required, it won't happen.
And there's no substitute for these things. So I think that also has to be ingrained culturally in most of the students.
Yes.
right? Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
So besides the points we discussed, is there something you would like to share with us about the courses that are coming up? When is it all going to start?
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So we are hoping to announce our admissions in May, and we are hoping to run at least 10 courses this time, and these will all be degree leading programs. So they will all lead to a degree, and they will be in the area of software design and web design. There will be in the area of beauty, in the area of early education, mental health. There would be courses in the area of BFSI. So we are creating a BCom in banking, finance, and service industry. We are creating so there'll be a very interesting course on hygiene management and the wash sector. We're creating a course for digital marketing. We are hoping to also create at least 2 or 3 large courses on hospitality, food production safety, and 2 or 3 large courses on medical, on paramedical services. So we are looking at a wide range of areas, and we are working with partners. Some of the best partners in the industry. E-commerce is another course that we are looking at. So we're working with the best partners in the industry to help us develop some of this. We're working very hard on the curriculum at this point of time. So the courses will be announced. We are hoping that students of Delhi would find this exciting to look at. And what I have been saying is, please don't choose a vocational course, choose a vocation in life. Yeah, because that's what is going to sustain you for the longest period of time in life. And our courses will be across Delhi, because our centers are across Delhi. We are a distributed campus, so they will be across Delhi. So I hope students and parents of students will look at our courses and find it exciting and interesting for the students to join us.
Yeah, I'm sure they will, ma'am, because the kind of industries you are addressing right now are the most in-demand kind of job roles that they are creating. And also, I look forward to hearing more from you as you go ahead. And we would like to
Absolutely.
feature again and again about the developments in the university.
Sure.
Because we feel these are all things which could be, like role model type of stuff for other states as well. When one state
Yes.
is taking a lead, the others can follow or interact.
Absolutely. And we can learn from each other.
Yes, learn from each other as well. So if we can help you with that, I'd be very glad to do so. Thanks a lot, ma'am, for talking to me today. Thanks
Thank
again.
you. And I'm very happy to have you as I have this conversation with you today afternoon. All the best for your work, and definitely we'll talk again.
Thank you, ma'am. Bye.
Thank you.